Okay, well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Andreas Corellis. I'm the Executive Director of RE-volv. Super excited to have this incredible lineup of panelists here today to talk about unlocking solar incentives for Michigan nonprofits, a model of state leadership. And I think it's important to point out that at this moment, while clean energy and climate has been going through a difficult period, that state leadership is so critical. So seeing what the state of Michigan has done and is doing is hopefully that other states can follow. Couldn't be more excited to be diving into this opportunity with you all today. Next slide. So we have a stellar lineup of guests today, and we are going to dive into the details of how to get your solar projects built, financed, and make sure that you claim your tax credits and all of the that are being awarded thanks to the state of Michigan. So we have with us today Cassie Rowlands, who is the Elective Pay Program Manager at the Michigan Infrastructure Office Technical Assistance Center. We have AC Meyer, who is the Supervising Attorney of Clean Energy and Tax at Lawyers for Good Government. We have Shiva Patel, who is the Managing Director of Capital Strategy and Market Development at Justice Climate Fund. We have Joanna Duecki Perez, who is the co-chair of the committee of the Michigan Detroit CDFI Coalition. We have Marquess Mason, who is the Senior Solar Account Manager here at RE-volv. And we have Ricky Ackerman, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer of the Eastside Community Network in Detroit. So we are going to hear from this panel. We're going to hear a bit from Cassie about what Michigan is up to and how elective pay can help your organization. We're going to hear from AC the details on how elective pay rules change and what we need to be aware of moving forward. We're going to hear from Shiva about the Justice Climate Fund, Michigan Elective Pay program and how your nonprofit can benefit from the state incentives that are being offered. We're going to hear from Joanna about the CDFIs in Michigan and how they're going to play a role with this effort. We're going to hear from Marquess about how solar financing from RE-volv can help your organization achieve its goals. And we're going to hear from who's just completed the installation of solar and batteries at East Seaside Community Network to hear about how it's really done in real life. So with that, next slide. So a little bit about RE-volv just to kick things off. We are a clean energy access organization that helps nonprofits go solar while raising awareness about equitable climate solutions. We are a 501c3 nonprofit ourselves, are an emerging CDF, and we've been doing this work since 2011. Next slide. So I think it's probably clear to most of the folks that are tuning into this call why solar for nonprofits is important. I think the first thing that comes to mind is reducing energy bills, especially at a time when energy bills are rising around the country, when nonprofits are facing increased operational costs and perhaps lower budget support. Lowering your energy bills through solar is huge. Also, the resilience factor, having battery backup at a time when we're experiencing increased climate impacts so that nonprofits can open their doors for community members during a disaster is critical to our communities. But one of the things that's probably not as well known is what's called the seeding effect. And this is the fact that when anyone goes solar, their neighbor is more likely to go solar when they see it on their neighbor's roof. And a recent study from Lawrence Berkeley Lab found that when a nonprofit goes solar, a house of worship, any non-residential installation, that seeding effect actually increases. That on average, each quarter of each year after a non-residential solar installation goes in, you can expect 3 to 5 residential installations uh, sort of that follow suit as a result. If you average that in the first 5 years after one nonprofit goes solar, you could expect up to 80 homes in that community having gone solar as a result. So when your organization goes solar, it's not just a benefit to your organization, savings, and providing resiliency. You're also demonstrating to the community that clean energy is accessible, that it works, and then hopefully can share that message with your community members. Next slide. So here at Revolve, we have sort of three pillars to our nonprofit work. We invest in nonprofit solar projects by providing financing, long-term financing for the nonprofits, and Marques is going to explain how that works in a few moments. We also engage the community through ribbon cutting events, through storytelling, making videos, getting those stories in the news, and doing social media so that as many people can hear about your project as possible and we can raise awareness about clean energy. And we also empower local volunteers around the country to lead these projects for nonprofits in their community through our Solar Ambassador program. Next slide. So to date, Revolve has helped over 140 nonprofits in 20 states go solar. We've deployed about $20 million into those projects. And notably, those organizations are now going to save over $40 million on their energy bills that they can put back into their programs. So for every dollar that's invested in a nonprofit solar project, you're likely to save over $2 over the lifetime of the system that you can put back into your community. This is creating real value for the nonprofits across the country, which is why it's so exciting that the state of Michigan is investing in nonprofit solar projects in Michigan. Next slide. So just to demystify this a bit for you, we're going to get into some technical details today. I want folks on the call who are hearing this stuff for the first time not to be overwhelmed. We're all here to help you work through all of these steps. And to kick it off, we're just going to give you a couple pictures and success stories so that you can envision what it looks like for your community. Here is a recent project that we helped finance in Philadelphia called Yeah Philly, an incredible youth-led organization serving youth in the community. It's going to save $85,000 on their electric bills. Next slide. The Watts Willowbrook Church in Compton, California is going to save over $184,000 that they can put back into their ministry. Next slide. The Plumas Charter School in Northern California is going to save over $700,000 that they can put back into their education materials for the students that they serve. Next. And the Lifeline Animal Shelter, which is the largest animal shelter in Georgia, is going to save over $1.6 million on their electric bills. Plus, look at these adorable puppies. Had to include this one. Next slide. And of course, we're delighted to have Ricky here from Eastside Community Network to talk to us today about the Eastside Resilience Hub that we'll hear from in a few moments. So, yeah, these are just a couple examples to encourage you on your journey. And next, we will hear from Cassie Rowlands. Cassie, take it away.
Thanks so much, Andreas. Hi, everybody. As Andreas said earlier, I'm Cassie Rowlands, and I manage the elective pay program within the state of Michigan's Michigan Infrastructure Office Technical Assistance Center. We can go to the next slide. I'm glad to be here with you today. Next slide again. Just because I want to really set the scene here about why the state of Michigan cares about elective pay and why we have been trying for some time now to really increase knowledge of elective pay and increase the uptake across the state. So first and foremost, the Michigan Infrastructure Office was created to bring as much federal funding back to the state of Michigan as possible. And elective pay is a way to do that for tax-exempt entities. So our office helps communities across the state bring grant dollars back to Michigan. And we've started this initiative around elective pay to also bring tax credit dollars back to the state of Michigan. We know that the tax credits present such a huge opportunity to bring these dollars back to the state. And so we really didn't want to let that opportunity pass by. And because elective pay is this new opportunity to bring those tax credits to tax exempt entities, we really wanted to make sure that those entities are aware of it and have the tools and resources to be able to use it. Next slide. So, the state of Michigan has the My Healthy Climate Plan, which is really our compass for trying to achieve our climate goals. They are ambitious and they are going to take all hands on deck across the state. And so, again, we really want to make sure that we're enabling all types of entities across the state to be able to access clean energy and implement their own climate goals as well, so that we can all feed up to the goals in the My Healthy Climate Plan. I will say the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, or EGLE, is kind of the main handler of the plan, and we work really closely with them and the Michigan Infrastructure Council on elective pay. And I'll talk more about those efforts in just a minute. But again, um, kind of like Andrea said, we really are focused on ensuring that Michiganders have affordable, reliable, and resilient energy. We know that clean energy is not only about our climate goals, but also about saving money. And elective pay is really a great way to shorten the payback period of clean energy investments like solar or geothermal HVAC systems. So you get to really seeing those energy bill savings even sooner when you're using elective pay. Next slide. Like I said, elective pay is still relatively new. Every day we're coming across entities who have not heard of it yet. We regularly provide webinars and other means of education, but we know there's still more to do. So we have been continuing to find new ways to educate Michiganders about elective pay, and we're really glad that this challenge number 2 grant program from Eagle is going to help us do that as well. Um, we really want to kind of demystify how you can access elective pay and then also provide you with the resources you need to actually use it. Um, a couple of years ago, our office participated in a roadshow across Michigan, talking to communities and letting them know about elective pay. And we asked, what do you need to help you access this? Communities were ecstatic that they would suddenly be able to use the tax credits that they could never use previously before elective pay was introduced in 2022, but they really wanted a way to help navigate that process. And so our office has created some resources to do that. And I'll talk about that in, I think, the next slide. So the My Healthy Climate Challenge number 2, like I mentioned, is the second grant program of the My Healthy Climate Challenge. Eagle has awarded $2 million across 3 projects, and RE-volv and Justice Climate Fund here are one of those projects. And so I'm sure they'll talk more about that, but we're really excited to have them on board. And the Infrastructure Office is also happy to be partnering with Eagle to help facilitate these projects and support as much as we can. Our office has technical assistance resources. They come in the form of free accounting services. These require an application to our office, but we can help elective pay entities sort through their project details and documentation and actually file a tax return for projects that have been placed in service. There are some parameters around that. And you can contact us or our 10 elective pay ambassadors that are placed across the state to be able to access that resource. And I will go to the next slide. I can't remember if I have, here we go. So the QR code here goes to the Michigan Infrastructure Office Technical Assistance Center's website. You can find all kinds of resources there, but really want to highlight our elective pay ambassadors. So these are folks who we have trained up on elective pay. They're located all across the state of Michigan, in regions local to you, and you can ask them questions, ask them about project planning, ask them about how you might go about pursuing your elective payment. And so you can find your local ambassador in your region at our website, which you can get through the QR code here. We also have fact sheets, webinar recordings, FAQ, all kinds of things, success stories on our website. So please feel free to check it out. But just want everyone to know that the state of Michigan here is here to help, is here to support nonprofits going solar. And we're here to also support RE-volv, JCF, and all of our other partners here on on the call so that we can have this really supportive ecosystem to make sure tax exempt entities are bringing as much money back as they can to Michigan and pursuing this resilient and affordable clean energy. Thanks, Andreas.
You're on mute, Andreas.
Thanks, Marquez. Yeah, thank you, Cassie. Thanks to the state of Michigan for all the support. And of course, thank you for all the work preparing those ambassadors to help communities navigate this. What a critical resource. Thanks, Cassie. AC Meyer, thanks so much. Over to you.
So hi everyone, I'm AC Meyer. I've got 5 slides or 6 slides in 5 minutes, so we are going to roll right through this. Rest assured the slides will be available after the presentation for you to look through, and some of them have been designed with that intent. And next slide here, I have to give this because I am a lawyer. I am not your lawyer. And the information that I'm providing right now is for educational and informational purposes and should not be considered as something that is directly applicable to any specific project. If you have project-specific questions, feel free to reach out to Lawyers for Good Government. We have programs involved where we have a lot of pro bono assistance. I know we've worked with Cassie, who will be able to vouch for us if you need local people to tell you that we are not coming in and trying to usurp what you want. And with that out of the way, we'll move along. I was asked to kind of talk about the general timeline on the next slide here. So the process for obtaining these elective pay credits really is, the way they work is similar to a tax refund. They essentially make the credits available as refundable credits for eligible entities, which means that this is an after the fact, after property is placed in service, it's a trailing reimbursement. So essentially the property gets placed in service, that property gets registered with the IRS, which is a little bit of high-level information being provided so they can do some pre-verification. Then a tax return is filed at the end of the year that the property is placed in service. That tax return has various due dates, initially 4.5 months after the end of the taxable year. There is an extension that we'll talk about a little bit in the next slide. And then after that return has been reviewed and evaluated, the refund comes back in the form of a check or often a direct deposit by the IRS. So it is a bit of a long runway there that can happen up to a year or sometimes slightly more after property has been placed in service. So that's one thing to remember there. Next slide talks a little bit about the timelines. A couple of examples based on common taxable years for entities operating on a calendar year, which is in most cases, as well as entities operating on a fiscal year, which can be anything other than a calendar year, but the most common fiscal year that we see is that July 1 through June 30th. And that gives some of the important dates. I'm not going to belabor that on this slide. It's something that when the slides are available, you can kind of walk through. The big thing here is that even though there is that initial 4.5-month deadline, as long as Form 8868, which is the extension request, is filed by that initial deadline, you will get an extra 6 months. That's really, we work with a lot of entities. Many entities just routinely file that extension every year to take that extra time and get themselves out of that crunch. Because I know you get to year end, it can take a long time to get everything through with the accountants, and this just gives you a little bit more breathing room. So that extension is very good. And again, the IRS doesn't have any discretion there. If you file properly for an extension, you will get an extension. Next slide. And now a couple of the requirements that are kind of unique to these projects that are imposed by the elective pay, especially initially the domestic content requirements, which require certain percentages of property and manufactured products, steel and structural iron, to be made in the US, made within the country. These are things that can essentially exclude people from the credit. From projects that begin construction in 2026 and beyond, meeting these domestic content requirements is mandatory to receive elective pay. If the project is over 1 megawatt. Projects that are under 1 megawatt are exempt from these domestic content requirements, which makes it much easier to satisfy. So the smaller projects, the kind of community pieces, a lot of the projects that Andreas was talking about initially, those would generally be under this 1 megawatt, because 1 megawatt is a lot of solar panels, and you're not going to get that on the roof of one building unless it's a large sports stadium or something. Next slide. In addition to the domestic content requirements, we also have new prohibited foreign entity restrictions, or PFE restrictions, that were imposed by the recent bill last year around the 4th of July, the One Big Beautiful Bill. These restrictions basically implement prohibitions on receiving the credit if there are certain connections to entities that are incorporated in or headquartered in what are called covered nations, which primarily are China, Iran, Russia, and North Korea, either through ownership control or the sourcing of materials. The material assistance rules, which are the ones I'm going to talk a little bit about today as we move along here, deal with the sourcing of materials for the qualified tech. There are also entity level rules, which are less commonly run into for municipalities and for things like religious institutions, because it's unlikely that municipalities or religious institutions would be considered to be controlled by foreign entities. That just is not a scenario that typically comes up, but it is something to kind of make sure that you're at least looking at that and checking the box. And there are also what are called payment rules, which deal with whether you are making payments under contract to entities that might have control over the facility. So for example, if a Chinese entity has the only ability to provide repair services and contractually nobody else can, that can be considered giving control to a prohibited foreign entity. But again, that's something that is usually a bit more easy to avoid. And we're going to talk really about the material assistance rules today. The timing, the material assistance rules begin to apply for anything that began construction after 2025. The entity level and payment rules kind of shift a little bit depending on when an entity's taxable year starts. Again, this is something you'll want to look into with an attorney, but violating any of these rules would exclude an entity from being able to claim the credit. We do have a brief in progress on recent updates from the Treasury, but those are not finalized yet, and we'll have that information when it's available. Next slide. Talk a little bit about the material assistance rules. Again, applies to projects that begin construction after December 31st, 2021. Entities have to have at least a specific minimum percentage of non-PFE materials and things that are manufactured by companies that are not headquartered or based in these covered nations. And essentially, this looks at where the company is headquartered, not where the materials are produced. So a Chinese company that owns a factory in the US, even if the materials of that factory are produced in the US, they would still be considered prohibited foreign entity materials because the company that owns that factory was headquartered in China. So that's one where you have to look at the ownership of the entity, not necessarily where things are being produced. And this next slide here provides a convenient table of what those percentages are for quick reference. I'm not going to walk through this. I'm already getting time warnings. I apologize. But again, this hopefully, as the slides are distributed afterwards, will be helpful for reference of what percentage is allowable for these prohibited foreign entity materials. And with that, I will hand everything back over to Andreas.
Thank you so much, AC. And yes, I know obviously there was a lot to cover there. L4GG, Lawyers for Good Government, is our trusted partner. When any of you are going through this, if you have questions, you can go through their Elective Pay Sprint Hub. You can get in touch with AC and their team, and they will be helpful to you as they have been to RE-volv and to so many of our partners. Thank you, AC, for explaining that. And now, Shiva, thank you so much. Please take it away, and we can dive into how nonprofits can navigate maybe some of those complicated rules, and how JCF and our partners can walk them through that and support them in that process.
Excellent. Thank you, Andres. And thank you all for attending. I appreciate your time and attention today. My name is Shiva Patel, Managing Director of Capital Strategy and Market Development at Justice Climate Fund. We can go to the next slide. Just a little bit about JCF. JCF mobilizes capital to finance clean energy and climate resilience projects that build economic and environmental resilience in under-resourced communities. While we're a national organization, we have a few priority initiatives focused on Michigan, the Southeast, and Native communities, recognizing where there is both potential for transformative impact as well as where the greatest investment is needed. Next slide. So just in terms of our overall strategy, we have three core pillars: invest, empower, and amplify. Invest is really about mobilizing capital, both direct and indirect. So whether that's through project finance, as well as credit enhancement facilities, such as loan loss reserves and guarantee facilities. Empower is really about leveraging and partnering with our network of 400 plus community lenders, project developers, community organizations, as well as local and state partners. For example, on co-lending opportunities or technical assistance and capacity building needs. And the third pillar is around amplifying. And so really tracking our tangible impact to ensure that we're actually being catalytic, and we're doing what we are set out to do. And while sharing the success stories along the way to help build up the ecosystem. Next slide. And so as I mentioned, one of our key priorities here at the Justice Climate Fund is the state of Michigan. And one of the initiatives within that focus area for us is the Michigan Healthy Climate Challenge 2. You heard a little bit of background earlier on the call. And so Justice Climate Fund, along with a great coalition of partners, many of those who are on the call today, is one of the three awardees for this grant challenge. And what our work plan associated with this grant is really about is addressing the problem that we've heard a little bit about today, which is the changes to the investment tax credit for solar energy, which significantly threatens the viability of elective pay eligible projects, those projects being owned by tax exempt entities. And so our solution over the next couple of years here is to really accelerate the use of the ITC elective pay mechanism to finance and build projects for nonprofits, municipal buildings, tribal entities, and/or places of faith. And so, as many of you know, we're moving towards that July 4th safe harbor deadline. And so the next few months are going to be very critical for us to get this program up and running and to get projects signed up so we can meet those, we can meet that deadline, and then still have some additional time to actually complete the financing and the development of the actual projects. And so how we're doing this is really, there's three sort of main components that JCF will be focused on along with our partners. We're developing an elective pay bridge loan product that we're going to be helping some local community lenders in Michigan to deploy. We're also going to be providing interest rate buydowns to elective pay eligible projects. And so recognizing that, many of these smaller nonprofit solar projects don't always pencil or don't always make economic sense at current market rate interest. And so we are lucky to be able to use part of the grant proceeds from this challenge to provide interest rate buydowns to ensure that projects do make economic sense and that we are able to maximize benefits to the end users. And the last component is really around technical assistance and capacity building. And this is really support for project sponsors and capital providers. So you've heard from folks on this call today, whether it's from the state of Michigan or Lawyers for Good Government, who provide technical assistance along this process, and JCF and RE-volv are also going to be providing that. And so we really want to simplify and make this process as easy and feasible as possible for folks. And so whether you're a community organization, a tribal entity, or another eligible project sponsor here, and are really looking for some hand-holding guidance and support through this process, we're here for that, and we'll be providing that support. And also, if you're a capital provider, whether that's a community lender like a CDFI or another mission-aligned private capital provider, we're here to support you all as well. And so we'll be doing a lot of work around bringing together different capital providers for the capital stack for these projects, applying the interest rate buydown, supporting through technical assistance and capacity building, and working with our coalition partners here to get as many projects as we can done to be able to meet that safe harbor deadline. Next slide. And so in terms of how to get involved, depending on which stakeholder you are, who you represent. So in terms of nonprofits and public institutions and tax exempt entities, please feel free to scan the QR code below. We can also throw a link in the chat if that's possible. And so here you could register your interest, and you'll hear a little bit more from RE-volv about some details here. But we really encourage you all to sign up, demonstrate your interest as soon as possible. As we mentioned, there is a tight timeline for the safe harbor deadline. And also we do have a limited set of funds here. And so we're trying to serve as many projects as we can, but recognize it'll be a bit on a first come, first served basis, as long as sort of meeting the eligibility criteria here. If you are a contractor or developer and you're interested, or you have some projects or you're interested in working on some projects, direct pay eligible projects in Michigan, feel free to please reach out to me directly, and my email is there on the screen. And if you're a capital provider as well, whether you're interested in providing some pre-development funding or construction funding or permit funding or a combination, and if you're interested in the ability to leverage interest rate buy down to unlock your capital for these very high impact projects, please feel free to reach out to me as well. And with that, I will pass it back to Andreas.
Thank you so much, Shiva. And yeah, I just am so inspired by the way that the state of Michigan designed this program to be as collaborative as it is, to have multiple partners working on this. Appreciate JCF's leadership on thinking through this program, and we are excited to share share the mic with Joanna, who can share how local CDFIs from Michigan are going to play a role in this exciting program. Joanna, thanks so much.
Thank you, Andreas, and thank you, Shiva, and thank you to everyone for joining this conversation. As Andreas mentioned, my name is Joanna Duicki Perez. I serve as the COO of Prosperous Detroit, but I also am one of the co-chairs of the Climate Committee for the Detroit and Michigan CDFI coalitions. Next slide, please. So we've just heard about the exciting opportunities created through elective pay and the work of the Justice Climate Fund and RE-volv are doing to help unlock those incentives for nonprofits. What I want to share today is how community lenders, especially CDFIs, can help make those opportunities real in Michigan communities. Community Development Financial Institutions, or CDFIs, are mission-driven lenders certified by the U.S. Treasury, whose purpose is to expand access to capital in under-resourced communities. What makes CDFIs distinct is that we don't only provide financing, we partner on projects. We work alongside organizations to help them navigate financing options, structure deals, and move projects from idea to implementation. In Michigan, there are more than 55 certified CDFIs serving communities across the state. Those include loan funds, credit unions, and a bank. Together, we represent a strong statewide network of institutions committed to supporting community investment. Most CDFIs also combine flexible capital with coaching and relationship-based lending, which is particularly important for projects like solar and clean energy, where organizations often need both financial resources and trusted guidance to move forward. Next slide, please. To strengthen this work, many of the community lenders collaborate through the Michigan and Detroit CDFI coalitions. These coalitions bring together mission-driven lenders and partners who believe that collaboration is essential to driving impact in our communities. Together, we coordinate learning, share tools, and align policy and program design with what we're hearing directly from our communities. We also help connect community-serving organizations and businesses with trusted capital and technical assistance so they don't have to navigate these systems alone. With both coalitions, we've also formed climate committees to help CDFIs better understand and participate in climate finance opportunities like this one. I have the privilege of co-chairing the statewide committee alongside Chris Spalding from Northern Initiatives, and in Detroit, this work is supported by Rob Lockett at List Detroit, who help connect local lenders and partners into these conversations. A key partner in this work has also been the Michigan Climate Investment Hub, which has been instrumental in helping connect CDFIs to this emerging body of climate finance work and building the relationships that make collaborations like this possible. Next slide, please. So this collaboration is exactly what today's initiative represents. Working alongside RE-volv and the Justice Climate Fund, Michigan CDFIs are helping build pathways for community lenders to participate in expanding access to solar and clean energy financing. There are several ways that lenders can get engaged as Shiva had mentioned earlier. Some may originate elective pay eligible projects working directly with nonprofits and community organizations exploring solar. Others may participate through co-lending or loan participations, which helps increase the amount of capital available and allows lenders to share risk. There is also an opportunity to co-develop bridge loan projects that help organizations manage the timing gap between installing a project and receiving the investment tax credit through elective pay. And lenders can also connect through the Climate Capital Connection, which provides tools and resources through the Justice Climate Fund. Across all of these pathways, lenders can also access technical assistance and capacity building to support to strengthen their ability to support these climate investments. Ultimately, the goal is simple: to make sure community lenders have a clear pathway to participate in expanding clean energy investment in the communities they already serve in Michigan. And with that, I'm excited for you to hear more about what this looks like in practice through the next presenters.
Thank you so much, Joanna, and thanks to the Michigan and the Detroit CDFI coalitions for their involvement, for their leadership, and ultimately, our goal is that beyond this grant program, beyond these incentives, that the local CDFIs become so comfortable and familiar lending to clean energy projects that this is where things are going to go from here. So thank you all for your leadership. And I'm sure top of mind for everybody is, okay, we're going to use these programs from the state of Michigan. We're going to partner with all the great folks on the call here today to get that elective pay. That covers, 30% or maybe 40 or 50% of your project. What about the rest? How do we finance that? So I'm going to pass it off to Marquez Mason to help us go through how we can help finance the remainder of your projects. Marquez, take it away.
All right, thank you, Andreas, and thank you everybody for being here. We're super excited to be working in Michigan. And once again, my name is Marquez Mason. I'm the Senior Solar Account Manager here at RE-volv. I'm gonna just explain a little bit on how you can work with RE-volv and get your project financed with us in some important dates. Next slide, please. Yeah, so across the nation, there's so many nonprofits that are facing barriers to getting their solar and storage projects financed. And honestly, I know this to be true because back in 2013, when I first joined the solar industry, I was in the communities knocking doors, talking to residentials and for-profit commercials about going solar, and there are opportunities for them to be financed to do so. One thing I learned was looking at the churches in the community or looking at the YMCAs in the community or the food banks in the community. I'm like, man, if we can get them to go solar, everybody else is going to go solar in that community. They see it right there in front of them. I'm like, perfect idea. The problem was there was nobody to finance. There might have been, but it wasn't well known. There was nobody. You couldn't find financing for nonprofit projects within the community. They had to come out of pocket and pay cash. Most nonprofits are not cash heavy, so it was kind of impossible to get them solar. But times have changed, since 2022, 2023, and this is what we're going to talk about with RE-volv. Next slide, please. So let's talk about what RE-volv has to offer as far as financing products go and what that means for you. So keep in mind with RE-volv, all of our financing products are no money down, so no money out of pocket to go solar. Unless you want to put something down, you can, but you don't have to. All of our financing products are no prepayment penalty. Us being a nonprofit ourselves, we realize that nonprofits get grants and donations all the time, and they can always utilize that to buy down their financing. There's no collateral needed. The equipment itself is the collateral, and we do not place any liens onto the building. Very important in financing and for nonprofits, no liens placed on your building. So when it comes to the different financing products, we have the loan, the lease, and the PPA, and I'll explain them briefly for you. So the loan is ownership. This is when you own your solar system, your battery storage outright. It's a piece of the property. It increases the value of the property. You own it. You take care of it. But one thing about the loan is you are able to file and claim the direct pay, the tax incentive yourself. RE-volv will help you in this process. We will guide you in the process, but we can't do it for you, but we'll be right there to support you and have your back and help you walk through this process in a timely manner. So this is a loan. You own your system. You file for your tax incentives with that. Now, the lease and the PPA, a little bit different. These are third-party ownership products where you don't own the system. In this case, RE-volv would own the system. RE-volv would operate and maintain the system. We would take care of it. But we would also file for the direct pay or any state incentives or utility incentives, and we would pass these savings through to the nonprofit. But you're not required to file it yourself. We own the system. We will file it. Now, a lease and a PPA are a little bit different. So a PPA is a power purchase agreement. Pretty much you're agreeing to purchase power at a certain rate from panels that are placed onto your roof. So this is a power purchase agreement, agreeing to purchase power at a certain rate. A lease is a little bit different because it's going to, you're just going to be leasing out the equipment at a certain cost that you'll pay out over a period of time. So you're not paying for the power that's produced, you're just paying for the equipment that you're leasing. Next slide. So when it comes to working with RE-volv, and what do you have to do to get the process started? So first we have a few dates we want to keep in mind. We need to collect 12 months of your electricity bills to be able to gauge your usage, size your system, and submit to one of our partner installers that we'll be working with in the state of Michigan. All of our installers are going to be vetted. They're going to be aware of the PFE requirements, and we'll be working with them to get your project sized and proposed. Now, when we submit that information, that usage to the installers, we're going to be getting the proposals back. We're going to be running it through our financing calculator, and then we'll have a proposal that we'll share, a savings report and a proposal that we'll share with you. And we want to do this by April 17th. So this is when we're going to start reaching out to the nonprofits. Your numbers are ready. Let's review these together. Now, by May 15th, we want to have everything signed. So it's pretty easy. We send documents through DocuSign. We sign like that. But the reason we want to have this by May 15th is we want to have enough time to give the installers time to purchase the required amount of equipment to safe harbor your project by the July 4th deadline. And reaching that July 4th deadline is important because it gives us a 4-year window to claim our ITC, or our investment tax credit. Next slide. So if you want to find out more, if you want to get some information, or if you want to start your project and get to moving, like they said, it is first come, first serve. You can scan the QR code, or you can go to www.revolv.org/Michigan, fill out the application, submit your information, and we'll be reaching out to you to get you moving forward. So I appreciate your time. Look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marquez. And just to put an additional point on this, we heard from AC earlier around the timelines, around the elective pay. That July 4th date, we really want to highlight for folks because if you get your project signed and construction commenced, which means at least 5%, but ideally closer to 10% of your project constructed, you're putting that money down, you're getting that project commence construction by July 4th. That's going to give you that extended window to get your ITC. So of all the ITC details to know, July 4th is the date you want to keep in mind. And as Marquez just shared, getting your information in first come first serve is going to allow us to put it in a queue, work with Justice Climate Fund and the CDFIs to get you financing options right away. So we do encourage folks to move quickly and get your name in the queue. That being said, we are delighted to have Ricky Ackerman here, who has led this project for a successful clean energy installation for Eastside Community Network. So Ricky, tell us how it's done.
Yeah, thanks, Andreas. So I just a little bit of info about ECN at first. Next slide. And you can actually go to the next one after that. The ECN is a community-based organization on the east side of Detroit. We've been around for over 40 years, and we're founded by residents wanting to have influence and power in the developments that were happening in their neighborhoods. We develop people, places, and plans to co-create sustainable neighborhoods on Detroit's east side. And we always do that with residents at the core of our operations. So next slide. We operate by the neighborhood's first engagement model, and this is just a graphic kind of looking at the values we operate with, trying to be community driven and community oriented. Next slide. We work across the spectrum of issues that I don't really have time to get into all of them, but we youth development, small business development, environmental justice, advocacy, project pilots, all sorts of different things. And we also operate a community center called the Stoudemire that I'll talk more about. Next slide. Just looking at what we deal with in Detroit, these are the climate and environmental justice issues that are impacting the health of our neighborhoods. So this influences a lot of our work, and just how we orient around these issues and what led us to pursuing solar at our site. Next slide. We also have an extremely unreliable utility in DTE, high number of outages, long connection times. They've applied for 6 different rate increases since 2020 now. They just got approved in February for their 5th one, and then a week later applied for a new one. And so, like when we talk to residents, affordability and unreliability are things they talk about all the time. So these are really important values, not just for us, but for our community. And so next slide, this really inspired us back in 2019 to start talking about how can we, like, we know we're not going to have everyone with resilient power in their homes, but how can we start to form a network of community sites that could be places people could go when there is power outages or there is extreme weather. And so we formed the Resilient Eastside Initiative with the city of Detroit. It started with us, our site, the Stoudemire, a city site, and then another nonprofit, and now it's grown to a dozen different community organizations. And as you can see from the pictures, they're just operating in all sorts of different spaces. Next slide. Our site is the Stoudemire Wellness Hub. It's about 17,000 square feet. We operate a lot of different classes: fitness, health, sewing. We have a co-op weather station. We have an EV car share. We have a free store. We do a lot of different things, just trying to make space to fit the needs of what community members are telling us, and really just push safety, education, health, and wellness in a lot of different ways. And so this is the center where we've pursued our solar project. Part of it is with those power outages, we wanted to be a site that could operate regardless of what's going on outside of our building. So next slide. And actually just to the next one too. And so one thing I'm bad at is incorporating logos of all of our partners. There's been so many people that have helped us along the way, but Elevate is a nonprofit that helped us a lot with their partner on the Resilient Eastside Initiative, and they helped us with our feasibility study and our RFP process, which led us to selecting Utopian Power as our contractor to install our solar. So it's a 95 kilowatt system on our roof. Next slide. This is kind of gives the specs of what it is. Oh, that showed up weird. I'm not the numbers finance guy, so I'm just going to be kind of quick to go through this, but I do want to acknowledge Kresge Foundation gave us about half of our funding. Michigan Saves gave us a bridge loan for the ITC, the elective pay credit that we'll be receiving, and then RE-volv helped us close the gap for the rest of the finances we need. Just next slide. Just to go through a rough timeline, this has been a project I've been working on for really 6 or 7 years in terms of getting financing. But once we got all that together last year, from issuing the RFP in November of 2024 to construction beginning at the end of last year, when we had our contractors working through snow in January. But this is sort of the rough timeline, and I don't have a lot of time to get into the details of it, but it gives a sense of just like all the things we had to go through to actually get to construction after getting funding in place. Next slide. This is kind of shows some of the images of them installing it. They're still cleaning some stuff up. I can hear them on the roof right now. But it's all in place. They have to do some battery testing, but the next steps are just going to be the permitting and getting permission to operate. And I just want to throw out the next phase of our site development is going to be doing the Angela Brown Wilson Gardens. Next slide. This just shows we're going to be doing some green space development on our site and some stormwater management and air buffering because we have a lot of air pollution in the area too. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. But that's all for me.
Amazing. Thank you, Ricky. Yeah, both for your leadership, for putting in 6 years into getting this project done, and for being a resource for your neighbors to show folks what this looks like in practice. Was really, yeah, I was delighted I got to visit with you at Stoudemire a few months back, and just really incredible work that you all are doing. So thank you for that. Um, Fantastic. Well, yeah, we've got about 8 minutes left here and time for questions. So obviously, we've gone through a lot of material. For those of you that are in the audience, please do use the Q&A feature to put whatever questions you have in, and we will, and if you have them directed towards a certain speaker, please put that in there, and we will get into that now. I just want to touch on something that I saw in the chat. AC made the great point that the July 4th, 2026 deadline is not a death sentence for your project. There's actually two dates to keep in mind. And again, this is in the slides, but just as a high level for folks, the elective pay, if you get your project signed and commence construction, which technically means 5% of your project costs are spent, but ideally we recommend at least 10 or 12% so that you give yourself a little bit of buffer. If you commence your construction by July 4th, that actually extends your ITC window for 4 years through 2030. So ideally, if you know that you want to go solar, now is the time to move quickly. You've got between now and July to commence construction so that you can lock in that longer time period. However, if you miss the July 4th deadline, or if your organization says, hey, we've got other priorities going on and we're not going to be able to get to this by July 4th, not to worry. You still have an additional period of time, which is you can place the system in service by the end of next year, by December 31st of 2027. Now, as Ricky pointed out, the ECN project took, altogether, close to 6 years. So obviously, between now and the end of 2027, it might feel like a long window, but it's going to go quickly. And these projects do experience delays, and they do, tend to, run over. So it is important that even if you can't make the July 4th deadline, that you have to keep in mind this project needs to be completed and placed in service by December 31st. Otherwise, the entire tax credit is no longer available. So that's why we had the timeline up, and maybe actually, yeah. Maybe if we can pull back up the slide from Marques's presentation that had the timeline on there, just so that we can keep folks in mind. I mean, those are the two important dates that your organization wants to know, but ultimately, in terms of getting your organization on a track as well as being eligible for this incentive program led by Justice Climate Fund. As we mentioned, this is going to be on a first come first serve basis because there's only so much funding available. So there's two incentives here. One is sign up your project as soon as you can, so you make sure you lock in those tax credits and that longer period of time. But also, you'll also be eligible for this Michigan grant number two, additional support. So that is on the timeline, and let's go ahead and look in the Q&A and see what questions we have from the audience. Okay, so kicking this off from Stephanie, we have, do you have any guidance about community solar projects in other states? If so, how are communities able to advocate and move the needle forward at the state level to bring community solar to fruition? So for those of you in attendance that aren't familiar with community solar is the concept that a sort of larger solar system can actually power subscribers from the community who can all receive bill credits on their utility bill, but it does require enabling legislation, which has been an issue in some states. So I don't know. Yeah, does anyone here on the call want to weigh in on community solar efforts in other states? Okay, well, I'll just say that, yeah, I mean, obviously, some of our partners, groups like Solar United Neighbors and Vote Solar, among others, have been working really hard to enact community solar legislation. There was also there was initiative in the prior administration from the Department of Energy, the Community Power Network, that was also focused on accelerating community solar. This is an important topic, and obviously something that we want to see more of everywhere. So we can direct you to some resources after the webinar.
Andres,
Okay.
just I'll just add
Yeah.
one quick thing as well. So John Farrell at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance does a lot of great things, and one of the things he's been doing for a while now is tracking community solar policies and programs around the country. And he's got a lot of great resources, case studies, data, all publicly accessible. So feel free to check out that as well in terms of those interested in the on the community solar front.
Fantastic. Thanks, Shiva. Okay, we've got a question here. Oh, wait. Oh, Siam says, no question right now, but appreciative of your presentations and time. Fantastic working on VPP virtual power plant projects in DC. Amazing. Um, Virtual power plants, another exciting opportunity for utilities to support people getting batteries and drawing down a portion of that power at critical times. So hopefully more programs will be adopting that soon. Actually, there was a question about utility support earlier. I don't know if it got answered, but basically the question was, are Michigan utilities basically supporting the permitting and interconnection process and making sure that that can be moved along steadily? Does anyone have any insights about that? What does the interconnection process look like in Michigan, and any timelines that we need to be aware of there? I don't know, Ricky, did you have much interaction with, was it DTE that you guys are interconnecting with?
I mean, the contractor managed that for us, so it took, it took a number of weeks for like interconnection application to go through and all of that, and then once the like everything's in place, then we have to wait for permission to operate from DT. So I mean, it's a process. I don't know. I think the speed just depends on the backlog. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah. So I don't really know
Fantastic.
what the
Yeah.
general sense is right now.
Excellent. Well, that's good. Glad to hear that it was a successful effort. Shiva, yeah, maybe if you want to just give a little bit more of a high level around how you think JCF might be coordinating, working with the CDFIs, and how we can, support kind of green lending, sort of encouraging in the state, now and beyond the program.
Yeah, definitely. So, we're working very closely with Joanna and the Michigan and Detroit CFI Coalition. So, those of you who are part of that and those who maybe aren't but interested in getting involved here, feel free to reach out. But what we're going to be doing is, we're right now is sort of assessing the where folks are at in terms of their climate lending journey and their capacities, interests, and opportunities, and then really sort of having a curated set of offerings to really meet those needs and those lenders where they're at. And so for this program and initiative, whether it's CDFIs might be interested in using their balance sheet and using some of their capital, but might need some support structuring and underwriting the actual product and projects. And so we're here for that. Others might have some projects, but are looking for other lenders to also participate if they, need some additional capital in the deal. And then, just generally, I think a big piece that we've been hearing and seeing a lot of need for is just that general sort of technical assistance and capacity building. And so really, we want to use this opportunity to not only develop and finance a bunch of great solar projects on nonprofits and tribal entities and other tax entities, but we want to help to really build a capacity of local lenders to be able to rinse and repeat this by themselves or in collaboration with others going forward. And whether that's specifically on elective pay or not, I think there's a lot that we'll unlock and learn and discover and work on together here that will hopefully be beneficial for various other types of climate clean energy lending going forward.
Amazing. Thanks, Shiva. We are at time, so want to thank all of the panelists who did a phenomenal job explaining this very technical work. Thank you to all the attendees who tuned in. Please do get in touch with us if you have any questions. These partners here are going to be collaborating to support you in your projects. Thanks, of course, to the state of Michigan for all the support, and we will be sending out the recording and the slides after this. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and look forward to getting some projects done with you soon.